Okay, I think we'll begin. Good morning, everybody, and a very warm welcome to our webinar this morning, Interviewee to Employee. We have an hour to talk about rather a large topic, really, from moving from becoming an interviewee, well, really sort of getting to interview, and then the bit in between that makes you an employee that stays with the organisation, because I think sometimes I meet clients who, once they get to the employee stage, they struggle to actually keep the job, and we want to make sure that you become a permanent employee, that you continue with the job, having got it. Obviously, the toughest bit is getting the job in the first place, but then there's these words that we get given when you're on a trial period or on a probationary period, and we want to be able to get through that as well. So, interview to employee, it's the bit in between that we're going to be talking about this morning. Lovely to see so many familiar faces. So a lot of you know me, and new ones as well. I'm Melanie Pearl, and I am one of the employment advisors at Work Avenue. I meet with a lot of you. I've met with a lot of you on a one-to-one basis. That's part of my job, to help you on a bespoke basis and talk with you really about what you're able to do in terms of your career and what you want to do next. And I'm also the employment programs manager, looking at our programs and reviewing them and making them as good as they can be and work for as many people as possible. My background is HR, human resources. I currently run an HR consultancy, which I've been running for about 10 years alongside my work at Work Avenue, which means that I'm often sitting on the other side of the desk, so to speak. If you will have heard me say this already, but my main role often at Work Avenue is helping people to think like an employer. And I think a lot of what we're going to be discussing today is going to be just that. Thinking like an employer. You know what you want, but what's the employer really want from you? How do you actually give the employer what they really want as well? Joined by Yael Solomons, just give you a few minutes to also introduce yourself, Yael.
Yes, hi everybody, good morning. Again, nice to see quite a few familiar faces, quite a few people from my workshop last week, so I'm glad you've all come back today. I have been on the employment team at Work Avenue for the last 9 years. My role is actually looking after our jobs board, so I speak to all of the employers who advertise vacancies with us, and then work with Melanie and our other employment advisors to try and identify clients who we think would be suitable for the role. So in all of that process, there's liaising with clients, liaising with candidates, liaising with employers, trying to bring everything together. So I think a lot of what will be covered today will be helpful for you, thinking about some of the things that go on, I guess, behind the scenes, and that you should be aware of, as Melanie says, from the employer's perspective when they are looking to hire. So I hope you will enjoy the session.
Thank you very much, Yael. And just to let you know, we are a bigger team on the employment side. So for anybody who's at an event for the first time with Work Avenue, we have two divisions: the employment division and a business division. Yael and I work on the employment side, helping people who are looking to work for an employer. We also have Richard Linden, who some of you may have met, who's another employment advisor working with us, and Hannah Dahan as well. And we're headed up by Emma May, who is the Director of Operations and Employment. And anytime you want to book an appointment with any of us, just call our reception, or we'll give you the details at the end, or email Talia, who's on our reception desk, and we would always gladly put an appointment in. I'm very happy to work with you on an individual basis, as well as running these workshops and webinars that hopefully help a lot more people as well. So I'm just going to share my screen and start talking to you about interviewee to employee. I just want to check that you can all see that. Can you all see the slides? Yes, good, lovely, brilliant. So if you have any questions as we go along, feel free to put them in the chat. Yeah, Elle will stop me at various points if something is relevant to what we're talking about. Otherwise, we will move them to the end, and I've certainly allowed time for us to have a good discussion at the end as well. So as I said, interviewee to employee, really it's this arrow that's the most important. This how we get from one to the other, which is what we really want to be doing. So how are we going to make a good first impression? That first impression really matters. The old saying, you never get a second chance to make a first impression, is absolutely true. You can make a second impression, I believe, but you have to work so much harder at it. So we want to make that first impression really good. Then how to get through each stage of the process. Once you get through the first one, what about the second one? And sometimes third, fourth, fifth, depending on what you're going for. And how do you prepare each time? Sometimes there's a presentation, sometimes there's an exercise. And then sealing the deal and talking about how to negotiate salary, how to negotiate working hours, how to tell people about a disability. Those things that a lot of clients talk to me about as individuals, and it's getting it right. And actually the most important thing is getting the timing right. And most of these things are best happen once you've got an offer. And that's what we'll be talking about. And then making a good lasting impression. And that's through the probationary period. Once you've got the job, how do you keep that job? How do you really make an impression? And it's very hard right at the beginning. It feels hard. Because you're the new person. But in a way, you're in the honeymoon period. That's the time to find out as much as you possibly can because you're new. So how do we impress a future employer? Maybe not like that. So just want to ask you, just in the chat, to just write. So those of you who don't know where the chat is, it's at the bottom of your screen, well, usually at the bottom of the screen, sometimes at the top of your screen, on the bar, and there's something called chat. And if you just click on that and send to everyone in meeting some ideas, excuse me, for how to impress a future employer. Just some one word answers as to ways to impress a future employer. Now I'm saying a future employer, so it could be an interview, it could be during the probationary period. One of the things we're going to talk about is actually the whole way through you're impressing your future employer. So how are you going to do it? Great, some great words coming in there. So confidence, smile, knowledge, enthusiasm to learn, bring in treats on day one. Well, okay, that's an interesting one. Don't know, not sure about that one. We'll have to talk about that one. Initiative, good appearance, asking good questions, absolutely. Researching the company, absolutely, in depth. Initiative, bring work portfolio to interview if relevant, showing dedication, looking smart, be informed about the role, be prepared to answer difficult questions. Totally. Eye contact, have questions ready. Such great ideas there, and all of them are right. Absolutely all of them. Whether you're talking about an interview, or you're talking about your first day at work, or you're talking about a few months into employment, most of those apply. I like the one about bringing in goodies. Not sure whether I would do that on the first day, but I definitely do that. I think it depends on how well you know them, really. But the rest of them, absolutely. I mean, all of those things, but they take work. They take attention. Things like smiling, that comes naturally to lots of people. Often it goes when you're feeling nervous, so be aware of that. But people want to work with friendly people. But the rest of them will come naturally if you've done your homework. So let's just talk about it. So now I'm not going to go into great detail about interviewing. We do actually have a workshop on next week on the 5th of May, which I think is Wednesday, which is probably running actually.
Yes, I'll be running that with Richard, one of our other employment advisors.
Yes, so that will be looking at the interview in much more depth, and you get an opportunity to really look at sort of how to interview and how to impress. But just as an overview, So we're looking at the interview to getting the job to keeping the job. And there's three things really that an employer is looking for. Can you do the job? Do you want the job, and will you fit in? And every single question that an employer asks you will be answering one of those questions. And if you've done your homework on each of these, then you stand a good chance of getting the job. Now, the thing to remember is once you're invited for an interview, you stand just as much chance of getting the job as anybody else. They are not going to waste their time meeting with you if you don't fulfill the criteria. So they already think you can do the job. They've already looked at your application, your CV, or whoever's recommended you, and they think that actually you're capable of doing the job. So the idea of the interview, where they are spending half to an hour on average of their time, is for you to provide the evidence now that you can do that. So go in there armed with examples that demonstrate that you can do what's required in the job description, that you've done it before. We're often judged by what we've done rather than what we say we can do. So if you can come up with examples, an employer will think, yeah, I'd like a bit of that. That's what we want this individual. Now, do you want the job? Now, I often talk to clients who say, well, I just went for some interview practice, which isn't a bad thing. It's fine to get the interview practice. But if you don't want the job yourself, it's going to be very hard to persuade an employer that you want it. So do think about that before you go, because what can happen is you go along to an interview and you think, well, I'll just go for the interview practice. But actually, I'm probably overqualified for this job. So, I'll go anyway. And then you don't get it and you think, I couldn't even get that job. And your confidence, takes a bit of a knock at that point. So you can be overqualified as well as underqualified for a job. And it's worth thinking, if you want to go for a job where you're perhaps you're overqualified for, do you really want it? If you do really want it, think about how you're going to persuade the employer that you want it, so that they know. If you're looking to change sectors, and lots of people are at the moment because some sectors have been really hard hit, talk about what interests you about the organisation that you're going to. And then will you fit in? And this is the will you fit in bit is the bit that really comes out in full during your probationary period. That's when you really know. Excuse me, sorry. But the employer wants to know that. So, and that's where your research comes in. Really research the organisation, talk to as many people as you possibly can who know about the organisation or are connected with the organisation in some way. Look at all the information you can possibly find about it, not just on their website, but elsewhere in the news or through other means, to find out what the organisation is like and how it works. But remember, it's a two-way process. When you go for an interview, you're assessing them just as much as they're assessing you. What I would say is, if halfway through the interview you think, oh, this really isn't for me, you're there then, make the most of it. You're already there. You can't really make that assessment when so much else is going on. So leave it till later, and then decide whether you really want the job once you've got it. I often talk to clients. I was talking to a client just a week or so ago who said, well, I can't decide between these two jobs. There's two jobs here, and I don't know, this one's long term, this one's more local. So just wait. Don't decide now. Go to both. Put absolutely everything into it, and take that decision when you need to. You don't want to be doing that now. Right now, you want to go along. I want both. If you really do. So excuse me. So then how do we move on? So first interview, you have the absolute best chance of getting through, as much chance as anybody else, if you've put absolutely everything into it. How do you get through the door? How do you get to the second interview? So the first thing to do is, at the end of the interview, we always talk about asking them questions. And asking questions, you're judged just as much on the questions that you ask as the questions that you answer. So really think about what you're going to ask the employer. And it's always questions about the job. what would you hope that the successful person will achieve in the first 3 months, the first 6 months? It's not about childcare. It's not about negotiating salary. If you're asked in an interview about salary, try not to answer it at that point, because you are in your best marketing position once they want you. And I've been on, I can't think how many interview panels I've been on, quite a lot in my lengthy career now. But every single time when we have selected the person, and remember, they go through quite a lot to decide who they want. Once they've got that person, they want that person. Now, of course, we'll come on to talk about salary in a minute. There's lots of other variables within that, but that's when you're in your best bargaining position. So you've got through first interview. You go back and you think, oh, I think I did really well. Not sure whether they know that I want the job. Or even if it did go, went well and you just want the job, always worth sending a thank you email. Why? It puts you on a pedestal above others, because most people actually don't do it. But really, it's just normal general courtesy to do that. So they've given up their time. It doesn't have to be a lengthy email. It can just be a few lines. You can draft it before your interview if you like and send it an hour later. But a thank you email to thank them for meeting with you, and to put in there if there's anything you did forget, or there's anything you didn't make clear, or if you feel that there's any doubt in their mind about something that you said, you might want to put that right in the thank you email. But less is more. It's not a great long email. You just want a quick thing that says thank you. If you're given a presentation to do or an exercise to do, very often you'll be given the subject. Obviously, really prepare well, and that's a good time to be talking to other people, finding out more about the organisation, really understanding how it works. Research, network, talk to other people to do that. Now, just to come on to this sealing the deal, these things that you want to negotiate. Now, to start with, I even thought about actually this being the main topic of the event, because a lot of clients talk to us about when to negotiate starting package, when to talk about having to leave early on a Friday afternoon during the winter months for Shabbat, when to talk about a disability. And this is really tricky, because we say, absolutely be honest. The whole way through your interview process, you are going to be honest. But that doesn't mean you have to disclose everything during the interview. So quite often, they will ask, what are your salary expectations? Know your stuff. Know what salary the job commands, approximately, if you can find that out. If you don't know, then talk about the job, how interested and excited you are about the job, and that you're looking for a market rate for the role, or a role that's a salary that's commensurate with the role. Those kinds of words I would use, rather than getting stuck on the salary. Talk about the fact that you like the job. If they pin you down, and sometimes they do, okay, but really, what salary would you want? Give a range. Maybe, depending on the level we're talking about, it can be a £5,000 or £10,000 range, so that you can then negotiate later. And you haven't, because what you don't want to do is give too low a figure and then you're stuck with it. You don't want to give such a high figure that you don't actually get through, and then you don't know whether that's why you didn't get through. So I'd always give a range. If it's been advertised at a certain amount, then you say, well, I saw that you advertised at circa 30,000, so that's absolutely fine. Move on. When you're thinking about working hours, this is a really tricky one, because I've spoken to lots of people about leaving early on Shabbat, and how to gauge that, especially when it's coming up. When so you're interviewing in October, and it's about to be the early finish times. I obviously have a look at the job itself. If you have a job where you have to be there on Friday afternoon every week, and there's no way out of it, you can't go for that job and you can't expect them to. If there's a good business reason, they're never going to agree to it. But if you feel that there is a way and you can make up the hours, I would ask once you've got the job. Because again, if you don't, you just don't know whether or not they've turned you down because of that. So I would wait till then. Yes, there's always there is a chance that they'll say you should have told us that along the way. There is that chance, but then you might not have got the job if they say that. So it is a tricky one, but that's what I would do. And the same with disabilities. And I know lots of disability organisations tell you be honest, to talk about everything. If you need reasonable adjustments for the interview, that's different. Obviously, tell people if you need them for the interview. But if you know you can do the job with a reasonable adjustment once you've got the job, the law allows you to not disclose that until you've actually got the job, so that they don't discriminate against you. Do be realistic. You know, when we're talking about negotiating a starting salary package, think about the level that you're at and where you are. If you're new to work, if you're a new graduate, if it's your first or second job, salary might be secondary in terms of importance to getting experience. Get that experience, then get the salary. Also remember, if you're applying to a charity, they will only have a certain amount of money in the coffers to give you. And do remember, offers can be withdrawn. So if you're too pushy, what I would say is always sound excited about the job. When you're offered the job, sound very excited about it. Say how thrilled you are. Do not sort of, say, oh, let me think about it. As soon as you say that, there's alarm bells then, or I'm not sure whether they're so keen. You can go back to them on the salary when they send you the contract, when they send you the details. But do sound really excited. And whenever you can compromise on anything, do. So in terms of the Friday afternoon hours, I need to leave early for however many weeks it is. And don't forget, it's not the whole year, so you must tell them that. But I will always make up the hours. I'm not somebody who clock watches. I will work, if the hours are 7 hours a day, I will work at least 8 hours every day. So I will be making up those hours through the year. So you give them the comfort, put yourself in their shoes. They've got to make sure that what you're doing is consistent with other people. So that gives them comfort. So just some do's and don'ts for making a lasting impression. So we've talked about, a little bit about the first impression, the lasting impression. The lasting impression isn't that different, but we want that impression to last. So know what to wear, because that gives you confidence. Apart from looking the part, it gives you confidence. So so is the dress code business dress? Is it smart casual? Is there dress down on Friday? Make sure you know these things before you get there. Always arrive early, not so early that they don't know what to do with you. This is at interviews and when you're actually starting on your first day. But do arrive early, allow time. The one thing employers hate is lateness. Speak to everyone and smile. Doesn't matter who they are. You want to make an impression on everybody. Ask lots of questions so that you understand what's going on, but not so many questions that you're not respectful of your manager's time. Always ask, is this the right time to be asking you? I know you're really busy. When would be a good time? Do exceed their expectations. So you want to do things particularly well during your probationary period. So if they give you a deadline, see if you can exceed it. You can't always exceed it, but if you can, then do. And if you can't, if you feel like a deadline is coming up, and you're not sure if you can meet it, talk to your manager and say, I know that this deadline's coming up. I absolutely want to meet a deadline. Can we talk about it? Do accept feedback willingly. Don't be. Some people just hate feedback. They take it as criticism. Feedback is a way of learning. So take that. Join socials where you can. That's the way to get to know people on an informal basis. It's a great way of really getting to know people. And some don'ts, which kind of correspond with the do's really in a way, but some don'ts. Don't hide. So don't just stay in your one spot and never move around. You know, this is, I'm talking, you know, hopefully you'll be in offices or workplaces and be able to move around a little bit. But good to get to know other people in the team, not just yourself. Don't be a know-it-all. My last company, we did it like, you know, we always did it like this. Have you thought about doing that? Don't want to do that right at the beginning. At the beginning, take things as they come. Yeah, offer solutions, offer ideas, but there's a balance. Don't stress. The first few months are hard. They take time. It takes time to you know, get to know a new organisation, really understand how they work. You're learning something new. So give yourself that time. Understand that that is going to happen. We talk about don't miss the deadline. Don't be too demanding from the outset. Don't make too many demands. Be careful. It takes time. And don't post on social media too soon about the organisation until you know about them. And then the final thing I want to talk to you about is performance. Knowing about your performance. Now, if you join a big organisation, the chances are they will have some kind of performance appraisal system or performance system for reviewing your performance during the probationary period. But if you work for a smaller company and some large ones, they might not. So you want to know how you're doing. How are you doing in terms of your goals? Are they happy with you? And are you happy with yourself? So evaluate your own performance. You know, keep looking and saying, right, okay, have I achieved what they want me to achieve? If not, how can I improve? Can I do some research myself in my own time to improve? Can I talk to somebody in the team to find out more? Does it always need to be my manager? And ask for feedback and act on it. And when you get the feedback, say, I completely understand, you know, I really want to take the feedback on board. Can we talk about how I can perhaps do that better, go to the next level? Some of you may have seen smart goals, which is quite a good way of making sure that what you're doing is specific. So a specific goal. What do you want to do? What do they want you to do? That they're measurable. That you'll be able to look back and say, oh, actually, how did I get on? Achievable. Very important. If you see they're not achievable, talk about why. As I said, if you get to the deadline. Realistic. Can you realistically achieve it? Obviously goes hand in hand with achievable. You know, do you have the skills and is it realistic? And time. When exactly do you want to accomplish it? And sometimes you might find you've got so much on your plate that it's, what do I do first? Not quite sure what's first. This is a new organisation. I don't know what their priorities are. Ask them, talk to them. But not all the time, you know. So maybe you find some time. Sometimes it's quite hard in an organisation, especially if you're in an open plan environment. How do you find time to talk to your boss? Find some time, talk to your boss and say, I'd really like to have a chat about some of the goals that have been set. When would be a good time for us to just sit down for 20 minutes, half an hour? And that way you're being really respectful of your manager's time. So just thought I'd finish with some absolute no-nos. These are no-nos in an interview, but they apply the whole way through. And this was from a survey of 300 employers, UK employers, that CV Library carried out. Absolute no-nos. So, and these were things that employers absolutely hate the most. So just worth knowing. So 68.5% hate lying. So, you know, whilst I said don't necessarily tell them everything, you don't lie. Don't lie about qualifications. That's actually something that apparently is done really frequently, that future employees do lie on their CVs about qualifications. Whether or not you think they're going to check them, don't lie. Turning up late, as I said, is a huge one. They absolutely hate that. If you're unavoidably late, make sure you phone, because but try not to do it. Boasting about other interviews and offers, that's an interesting one. Now, it's not a huge percentage, but it is there. Quite often people say, oh, should I just tell them that I've got another offer because they're taking so long? Employers don't like that. If you've really got an offer, then of course talk to them about it, but then tell them how much more you want to work with them. But they don't like that. The eye contact's really important on Zoom, and I'm trying very hard to make sure that I'm looking straight at my camera. Wherever you can, look at your camera, because you gain that eye contact, and obviously in person, that eye contact is useful. Being underdressed, always better to be overdressed than underdressed at an interview. You can take off a jacket, it doesn't matter. They expect you to be, to be well dressed. If you're better dressed than the person interviewing you, never mind, it's better than being underdressed, but obviously check out the environment you're going to be in. Not being hygienic is an interesting one. And that's that was also, when I looked at it, that was also about sort of wearing really strong fragrances that people found a little bit unbearable. And I just put this one in at the bottom, of being too shy, because I think we often think, oh gosh, I'm so nervous, I'm really, I'm not going to come over well. Employers don't mind that too much. That's down at 4.7%, and that's probably for jobs where you're going to be working in sales, where being really shy is probably not a great attribute. But in general, if somebody's nervous, people will see through that, and you might not perform your best. So obviously we want to try and do all the preparation we possibly can so that you do perform your best. But they understand that, so that's one not to worry quite so much about. Thank you very much. That's mostly what I wanted to say, but I really wanted to now throw it open to the floor to talk, because I've covered quite a lot of ground, I know. Any thoughts? Yeah, I haven't been looking at the chat at all, so
right. Yeah, we've got a question there to start with. This is to do with being asked in an interview, either why do you want to leave your current job if the person's still working, or why did you leave your job, especially in the case where the parting wasn't amicable, or someone's feels like they're having conflict with their manager, or even redundancy. How would you approach that?
Yeah, so it's definitely one to consider in advance, what you're going to say. I think the first thing to say is, very often when we go into an interview, we've gone in thinking about that one thing. What am I going to say? And when you're asked the first question, which is often tell me about yourself or something like that, we feel the need to include what happened, like a made up story, or a story that's, sort of a little bit sort of close to the truth, but not quite within that. So the first thing is, don't tell them unless you're asked. So that's the first thing. But you probably will be asked, so you need to have something to say. And then I would try and make it about the job you're going for. So if you're made redundant, if your job's made redundant, no problem with saying that at all. That is very common, even more common now than ever before. No problem saying that at all. If there were lots of redundancies, say that, because then they know that you weren't somebody who was singled out, and the fact that the organisation is going through whatever it's going through. If it's due to COVID, talk about the fact it's due to COVID. That's very, very common. If there's something happened to you as an individual and there was a disagreement at the end, then I would talk about how much you want to move on, and how interested you are in the role, and how excited you are about it, and move on. Don't dwell on it too much. That's the other thing we often do, is when we're talking about something we don't want to talk about, then we waffle and we just talk and talk and talk about it. Don't do that. Be ready with your answer, practice it with one of us, with an advisor, and be ready and move on. Okay, any other questions?
Yes, I see there's a couple of people with their hands raised. I think, Gilly, did you want to ask a question?
Yes, I did want to. Hello, Mel. Hello, Yael. Hello,
Hi.
everybody. It was just about, you said, find out as much as you can about the organisation and ask people things. Who should you ask if you want to find things out about the organisation? Who are you thinking of specifically?
So ideally, if you can see anybody in your network who knows about the organisation, that is your best possible source of information. So using LinkedIn and putting in the name of the organisation, and seeing whether there's anybody in your LinkedIn who you can then say, I've got an interview with BP, and I see that you've worked there before. I know you've worked there before. Just wondered if I could have a chat, because it'd be really interesting for me to find out a little bit more about how they work. So look if there's somebody in your network. It could be your first contact, but it could even be your second contact, because you're doing that. The other thing is, if it's not, say it was BP, maybe a competitor of BP. If you haven't got BP, anyone in your network who works specifically for BP, maybe you've got somebody who works for Shell, so that you can still find out about the industry. So as much as you possibly can. If that's not possible, then it's all about research. It's all about looking, I mean, it is anyway, but in this case, then it's all about looking and seeing, reading as much as you possibly can about the organisation, in the news, on their website, their annual report and accounts, whatever you can really get your hands on.
Yeah, thank you.
Pleasure. Any other questions?
There's another question. If the job is advertised as full-time and you want to work part-time, can you ask if they are prepared to offer part-time?
Okay, interesting one. So it depends on how much of a change you need. So if they're advertising a job as full-time and you want to work 2 or 3 days a week, the chances are they're going to say no. They might say yes to a job share, but the chances are they're not going to say yes to you having interviewed you. But if you're looking to work 4 days a week, I know quite a lot of clients who have gone right through to the final stage, then been offered the job and asked about working 4 days a week and have been successful. And that's because that's a fairly common working arrangement now. You would obviously talk about making up the hours on the other days. And again, like the Friday afternoons, it has to be in an organisation where it's not essential that you're there. If you're the person who has to open up every morning, then clearly that's not going to work. But if you feel that there's a way that the work could be done in 4 days a week, then you could do that. If it's moving from 5 to 3 days, I think, again, you could try once you get to the end, but I don't know if you'd want to go through all of that. I think, you know, I think you'd probably want to know at the beginning then if it's going to be part-time. It's always a balance, because once they want you, then you're in a much better position. But if you're asking for too much, then it's not going to happen. You know, if they're interviewing everybody for full-time and you want part-time, how are they going to do the job share? They're going to have to find somebody else. So it depends on the situation.
Yeah, Mary, sorry, if I could just add, I had this exact situation yesterday with one of our clients. So we've got a job now on our jobs board that's 4.5 days. And they said to me, do you think they'll consider 4 days? Because I struggled to get childcare for half a day on a Friday. So I said to them, I don't know, but it's not miles away. There's a lot of people interested in this job. Your best thing is to apply for the job. Don't say anything. Get to the final stage. And if you're offered the job, as Manny's been saying, that's the best time to negotiate. If they've got this person now and 2 other people who they think are equal, and then this person says, actually, I might have a problem with a half a day, they'll probably immediately take them out of the process, because why do we need that headache? Whereas if you get to the part where you're offered the job, then they want that person, they're much more likely to make it work. So sometimes these things are really on your mind because you feel, I've got to say it. Just hold your nerve, don't say it, get over the line, and then hopefully it can be worked out. Okay, we've got another couple of questions here. What about an informal interview, Melanie? So you just meet them and they don't really seem to have any questions prepared. They sort of tell you about the job and do all the talking, and you feel that you haven't had a chance to say anything. Yeah,
that's a really difficult one. It is very difficult. Now, you want to try to, if you can, so you've prepared, because you've got to, the thing to remember is that everybody's going to be in the same boat. So if this person doesn't stop talking, then everyone's going to be the same, really. So where you can, when they ask you at the end, so sometimes, I mean, I actually went for an interview like this once. I went to an interview for a property company. It was to do some consultancy work, and this guy told me all about his property empire. It was full of cinemas and restaurants and all sorts of things. And I hope he's doing well now, but at the time he's doing extremely well. And he spent a whole hour telling me everything about his business and didn't ask me a thing about me. And I was going there to do a performance management project for him. And then it got to about, I don't know, 50 minutes into it, and he said, I didn't realise the time. Really lovely meeting you. Thank you very much for coming. So, oh, I haven't told you anything about me at all now. But he'd had a great time because he had told me all about his business, and he'd really enjoyed himself telling me about it. So I actually said to a friend at the time, I said, you know what? It didn't actually tell this guy much about me, but I think actually I might get the work because I think he liked me. The chemistry was there. So sometimes it's about building that chemistry. So what did I do? At the end of it, I then sent an email, a longer email than I normally would have done, thanking him, but also letting him know what I could offer to the job. So I think you can do that. If it's somebody who isn't really used to interviewing, which I think often happens in perhaps smaller organisations, or actually even larger organisations, you get managers who just, they do the job, but actually interviewing is a whole new ball game, and they want to just tell you all about the job. I think make the opportunity wherever you can. So say, would you like me to just tell you a little bit about me? So it's not taking over, it's asking a question. Would you like me to tell you a bit about my skills? And then answer the question that would normally be, tell me about yourself, and let them know. What else? I think sometimes when they ask you, have you got any questions at the end? That's the time not to think, oh, I'll just answer the questions that I've prepared. Actually, can I just take this opportunity to tell you a couple of things, because I realise I didn't get a chance to tell you. That might be a chance to bring them in. Does that help, or is there a specific one whoever asked that question is thinking of? Okay, all right, moving on. Thank you. Hopefully that helps.
Okay, different question now. So I think this question is about where you're going through a recruiter, and the recruiter and the employer are quoting very different salary ranges for the role. Before the offer stage, what's the best way to sort of navigate or negotiate in that scenario?
That is a tricky one. It's a very tricky one. And in fact, I actually had a client this week who had exactly the same thing, that the agency had got it wrong. I mean, I think the thing is, the person who's going to know is the employer, really. If you can, I mean, again, we're looking at negotiating once you've got the job. So don't, not before that. So leave it till then. Don't do anything until then. So actually, you will get an offer letter that tells you exactly what the salary is. And if you don't, then you'll get an email, you'll get something that tells you, and if not, you have to ask for it. So that would be the time to tell. But I think if that is happening, I would go directly to the employer. And I'd always try and do that wherever you can. So when I'm talking about the thank you note, go directly to the employer rather than through the agency. Agencies don't want you to do that. Obviously, don't ask them if you can do that. Don't do that if you've signed an agreement that says you won't, if they've told you that you mustn't go to the employer. And be a little bit careful about it, because you'd want them to still be working for you. So you don't want to do it too often either. But if you want to get a point across, then you might want to go directly to the employer. And it's reasonably easy to find out email addresses of the persons, people who are interviewing you now. There's usually a pattern that's followed, or you ring reception and you say, I want to send an email to Joe Bloggs, could you give me his email address? Obviously it's not a private email address, there's no reason why they wouldn't be able to give that to you.
Thanks, Mel. What about the case where your Valerie is asking if you're contacted by a recruiter, but I think this could also apply equally to an employer. They tell you like a little bit about the job, not much, there's not a real job spec or information given to you. How would you prepare for an interview if they said, come and meet us tomorrow?
So I'd always ask for the information if you can. So understand that if it's a small office, they might not have it. But you can always, in a thank you letter, thank you for offering me an interview. Really looking forward to meeting you. Are you able to send me some more information about the job? And see what comes back, because I would always try, because I think otherwise you might have some people who do have a job description and some people who don't, and that means other people are at an advantage over you. So always try. But if there isn't anything, all you can do is research as much as you possibly can about the organisation, try and find out as much as you can, and then be ready to ask questions when you get there. So, can you tell me more about the job? But maybe even more specific questions. The question I just now said, what would you expect the successful candidate to achieve in the first 3 months? And another one might be, can you tell me what a typical day consists of? Really questions that are going to really tell you about the organisation. If you've got somebody in the, I was talking to a client the other day about who had a second interview, and his interview was actually with his boss to be, but also with the person who had done the job before. And he actually said, he asked a question, he said a question probably directed to you, talking to the current job holder. Can you tell me what you like best about the job? And then what you don't like about it. Is there anything you don't like about the job? Now, obviously, they're not going to tell you, loads and loads with the boss sitting there, but they might tell you a couple of things so that you get an understanding, or anything. Maybe a better question is anything you find challenging in the job, perhaps, so that you're not putting them in a difficult position. But yeah, you can only go with what you've got, I guess.
I agree. I'll just add, you can also make some sort of sensible assumptions about what you could talk about based on what you know. So if the job title is, front of house receptionist, then you can assume they're going to want someone who's got great communication skills, good on the phone. If the job is a back office data analyst, then it's going to be a very different skill. So from what you have, you can make some assumptions of the type of things that you should be talking about and highlighting from your experience and skills in the interview. That's all I would add there. Jane,
the other thing, sorry, just another thing you just made me think of it, is also you could look at other job descriptions from other organisations that are similar. Is another thing to do, and look at what the person's spec is on those if they haven't actually provided you with one. Sorry, yeah.
No problem. Jane, if you're on the call, Jane has a specific job-related question. I don't know if that's something that you wanted to ask now in the forum.
Yeah, if you don't mind. It's a company where I know the managing director. I've actually known him since I was a teenager, and I work in mainly advertising sales. I have my own business in between. It's quite a small industry. There's not very many Jewish people in it, so we all kind of known each other basically from when we all started. And I contacted the CEO when I got made redundant, and he's now got a head, because I knew him literally when I was a teenager, and we've kept in contact all through the years. And he's now got a head of recruitment, and she basically said to me, part of their portfolio is to do with travel. So obviously that's been on the back burner, but that's their kind of flagship titles. Everything else is to do with newspapers, which is a much lower job. And she said, like, the travel end, they've started working again because they were on furlough for a long time. And she said to me, they are basically looking at putting together a travel expo, which is really upmarket. It's to do with food, which is a lot of my background. She said, we're hoping to get that going this year, but she won't know for a couple of months. In the meantime, she said, look, I can take you on one of the other jobs. She said, it's way below your experience. You'll be bored senseless. And the salary, just the basic salary, is about £10,000 less. So it's a lot less. Having said that, since I first spoke to her when I first got made redundant, I've been approached. They're also in Highgate, which is really convenient for me. So, and they'll do a hybrid, part home, part work. I've been approached for jobs which are, I live in Hendon, which are like in Luton, which is like an hour drive away and things like that, with way lower salaries. Another one like an hour away. So I have gone back to her and said, look, it might be worth me looking in the short term, but I'm nervous that I can't afford to take a breather and wait a few months. I'm nervous that I'll get pigeonholed in a really junior, boring job. And would I be better off to wait, because it's such a strange market, and see what happens in the next couple of months?
Gosh, a really difficult one. It is a hard one. I mean, if you're happy to take it and you feel that the other job will transpire, then I don't think you will be pigeonholed, because when you leave a job, you tend to put sort of the last job that you did on your CV. So
no, I meant within the company.
Sorry?
I meant within the company.
Oh, I see. Not if
because I won't be able to shine. I wouldn't be able to shine, and it is a very tough market. It's a really, really hard market.
Yeah. I mean, I think I would make sure you get the contractual stuff spot on. So this can happen, particularly when you know somebody. It can,
I'm going through his recruitment. He doesn't even get involved now. So he just put me. He literally doesn't even sign people off. She makes all the decisions.
Okay. So it depends on whether, if you're happy to take the job, or happy to take it because there isn't anything else right.
I will be bored, but I'm thinking, on the other hand, am I better off earning the same kind of salary as I'm being offered, with the potential of moving into a better job, something that's geographically convenient? They're happy for me to work a couple of days at home, a couple of days in the office. And it is a company with really good backup. A lot of media companies don't have that, which is what happened. But I'm just I won't be able to shine. It's a very hard marketplace.
Yeah. I think. Sorry, I'm only talking over you for time, because I can see there's more questions.
Sure.
5 minutes left, but I'm very happy to talk to you individually about it as well. But
let's do that then, because I don't want to hold everyone up.
Yeah, I think just a sort of general response is, I think if you absolutely get in writing that within 3 months, whatever it is that you agree, that you will move to the new salary. It's
not necessarily the salary, it's also the job. It's also the job. I was trying to explain it to my cousin, who just wants me to get back into work, and he's a lawyer, and he's a big tax lawyer in the city, and started out in conveyancing. I said, well, would you like it if somebody, if you had to go and do a junior conveyancing job in Finchley, you wouldn't be very happy. It's a very different job. So I don't know if I'll be underselling myself and looking a bit desperate if I go back now. Do you see my thing?
Well, no, I get it. I'm very happy to have an appointment with you if you want to phone Talia, and we can discuss.
Yeah, or Richard's my counsellor, whichever.
Okay. Yes, then Richard, absolutely.
Because it's quite a hard one, really.
No, I agree with you. Yeah, and I can see there's another.
There's one question here. Yeah. What to do after being accepted for a job? So you offer and accept the job, you receive an informal request to connect on your private social media account from one of your superiors at your new place of employment. Is this appropriate of them? Should you just accept it to give a good first impression, or how should someone sort of play that? Social media requests on private accounts from managers in your new place of employment.
So as in private account, not LinkedIn, is that?
It hasn't said. This is Felix. I don't know if you want to unmute and tell us a bit more detail. It's typing. Not LinkedIn.
Not LinkedIn,
so I'm
right.
Guessing,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Such a tricky. I mean, it's not appropriate really for them to do that. But then some people connect with everybody. I guess that might be his feeling, is that I just connect with everybody. I don't think about it. You could try ignoring it. I mean, I think that's often sort of, rather than making a big thing of it, just ignore it and see if it goes away. He might not even realise that you haven't connected. I think that's probably what I would do, and maybe then connect with him on LinkedIn and just do that, and if you're on LinkedIn, because that's the business person's social media. But yeah, that's what I tend to do. I tend to, if I don't want to connect with someone, I ignore it, and usually they forget about it. Okay.
Okay, do we have time for one last question?
One last question, yeah.
Probably slightly related to what Jane said. The question is, do you take a lower status job with a hope of a speedy promotion 18 months or 2 years down the line?
Yes, I mean, I think if you're looking at 18 months to 2 years down the line, then yes. I mean, I think quite often, I think it depends on how long you've been looking. You know, I don't like people sort of presenting themselves, really. You know, if you've got the skills, then try and do the job that you should be doing. But with the way the market is and the competitiveness and certain industries not offering many jobs, then a lot of people are looking to become skilled in a new area. And I think if that's the case, if you're looking to move into a new area, you often have to start at a lower level, because otherwise they're just not going to take you, and they take you based on your transferable skills. And then I often talk to people about there being a stepping stone to something else. So think of it as a stepping stone. I think that's the only way you should think of it, is I can get back to where I was. But make sure you have that plan and you put it in place and you think it through and you think, right, okay, what is this going to lead to for me in 18 months to 2 years? And if that works, then I would go for it. But very happy again to chat individually to you about it.
Okay, thanks so much, Mel. I can't see any other questions, which I think is quite good timing because it's now 10:59.
Absolutely. So thank you very much, everybody. It is a bit of a whistle-stop tour through. I hope you will get to certainly first interview stage, and then moving on to the next one. We are very happy to help you all along the way, to answer any questions that you've got along the way. Certainly our webinars are designed to run alongside our bespoke one-to-one appointments. So do get in touch with us. I can just ask Yael if you're okay to just put in the chat our contact details, our phone number and email address for making an appointment. That'd be great. Thank you. And yeah, do get in touch with us for a one-to-one appointment to talk things through. As I said, we've got interview skills running next Wednesday. I believe there still are places. There were when I last looked. We have another workshop called Transferable Skills, which, just to answer the sort of one of the last questions, which is looking at the transferable skills that you might have and being able to demonstrate those to an employer if you're looking to move roles. And you know, a whole host of other workshops and other webinars will be coming up. So keep an eye on our website, keep an eye on your emails. Occasionally they go into junk. Just keep an eye on them, because we send out details of all of our events on them. Thank you very much. Lovely to see you, Melanie. And good luck.
Thank
Pleasure.
you.
Pleasure. Lovely to see you all. Bye bye.
Melanie?
Yeah. Yes.
Are you able to give me a call?
Yes, sure, of course.
All right, thank you.
Of course, no problem at all. Will do.
Thank you.